Well, very much so, and it's always good to see you, Beverly. The police chief took the unusual step of explaining that the reason, or he believed he was fired because he was told to be more aggressive in the way he was treating the demonstrators. In this case, again, a bit unusual, the demonstrators are anti-government, and to understand the where this all fits in with the national scene, imagine 26 consecutive Saturday nights, 26 of them, with tens of thousands of people coming out each time in a country of population is not quite 10 million yet. So it's become like the national sport. You know, what are you doing tonight, dear? Well, we have to go to the demonstration, and then hopefully a cafe is open afterwards, and we can dry off in the water cannon and then grab a bite. In this case, the polarization is becoming so significant that just being part of the police force under distinct orders from the side that you are not politically aligned with is a reason to leave your job. So for the police chief to, Tel Aviv is the main city in Israel, by the way. So for the police chief to leave the position as he did, and in the middle of the week, between those two, 26 and 27 uh, weeks of protests, to have thousands of demonstrators come out, block the main highway, and do other things around the country is very significant.
Yeah, it of course is underlying these judicial reforms that are highly unpopular, and the politician that has pressured him, he said, is the right-wing security minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. Is Itamar Ben-Gvir wielding too much power in Israel at the moment?
Well, obviously, the people that are demonstrating every night, every Saturday night, would tell you yes. Those that are stalwarts in the government will say no. The government's position is that everybody who voted in the last election knew that judicial reform was on the docket, and yet enough Israelis voted for it to put them in office. And if there's going to be a change, it'll have to wait till the next time. Others argue in a more moderate position that that's great, but every time you change governments to change your operating orders from the government and through the government's democratic procedures, this is a little much to ask the country too. So there's so many subtexts and sub stories going on. Who is calling for what? The purported leader of the opposition, well, the leader of opposition, and the man that many people feel will ultimately replace Netanyahu, Benny Gantz, called for a compromise whereby the legislation track stops, and during that period, the negotiations continue, but continue seriously and then until they get somewhere. But that doesn't look like that's going to happen either. So for the long haul, it looks like Israel is going to have a lot more of the same.
Yeah. Let's talk a little about this military operation, large-scale military operation, the biggest we've seen in 20 years in Jenin. What do you think has been achieved, Michael?
Well, everybody's going to say they achieved what they set out to achieve. They don't necessarily say what it was they set out to achieve. But the feeling on the Israeli side, and of course they can back it up with statistics and figures and illustrations, the Jenin base of terror is what the Israelis claim has been carrying out all this spur of attacks that have been happening over the past months and even year. The people who are behind them, the Israelis say, are not part of the Palestinian Authority. The Israelis take somewhat of pride in the fact that they conducted this operation with a minimum of casualties on both sides. They feel that that was heavy intelligence work. But what they said that they had to do was, in order to stop both the lone wolf attacks and the more organized attacks, they had to get to these massive arms caches that were being created, arms manufacturing being created, a lot of intelligence network, the stockpiling of arms, all came out of Jenin. And they have been taking really almost every day for the last year. Israeli forces have gone into Jenin in some form or other, but it hasn't done the trick. And they felt the time had come that they had to do it once and for all. But notably without the expression once and for all, because nobody from the prime minister down believes it is once and for all.
Well, he's actually said it's going to not be just a one-off, but there's also terrible civilian fallout when you look at the pictures coming out of Jenin. You know, it feels as if there's been a lot of casualties as a result of this operation.
Well, any casualty is too many casualties. The Israelis are, as I said, their talking point at the moment is how casualty-free this operation actually went. When you look at visuals coming from the area, you can't help but have your heart wrenched when you see the destruction, you see the ground. You know, when they go in to pick up the IEDs out of the ground to protect both civilian and soldiers, that causes a lot of devastation. And they haven't created the weaponry that you can fire with such impunity that it's going to pinpoint one by one area and not spill over to others. So the cost in human suffering is axiomatic with this kind of operation. Nobody's ever going to be able to stop it. If you could talk about excuses, we had to do this, we had to do that, we did this, we did that, that's great, but it doesn't really affect the people who are harmed by it.
Yeah.
And on that end, you have the people that do the acts that cause the action, and the action in reverse back to the people that caused it. And it goes round and round and round, and that's why we're here doing this so often.
Yeah, which is, as you say, it feels like this never-ending vicious circle that never really comes to any conclusion. Good to have you on, Michael. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Beverly. Great seeing you.